Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. Episode 89 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm here with my sidekick, Byron. How are you today, Byron?
Gary, I am doing great. Just got done with an Andre Montero seminar earlier today. Learned a lot of cool stuff, and it's always great when he comes into town. But I'm super pumped for our interview today with Tim Sledd.
We have Tim Sledd from Atos, and he's a first-degree black belt under Andre Galvao. And he's here, and he's going to share a lot of knowledge with us.
Yep. He really does a fantastic job of breaking things down. His ideas about jiu-jitsu are... he just looks at it in a different way. The way he's able to communicate his thoughts and help everybody understand some fundamentals of jiu-jitsu and how to link things together. It doesn't matter what type of game you play. If you're able to link things together within your game, and Tim's going to help us do that today, it's going to help you out a ton. So really excited to have him on the show. Really excited to learn a little bit about him. The good news... or the bad news.
Good news. What do we got?
Well, we don't get to pack all of Tim Sledd into one episode because it went a little long. So that's the good news. It's long. But the bad news is you don't get it all today. You have to wait next week, and we'll have the second half of Tim Sledd interview.
Hey, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And I will tell you, I was not in on this interview, and Byron and I were just talking about the interview before going on air right now. And as excited as Byron is about this interview, part one and part two, I can't wait to hear it. Byron was just telling me Tim Sledd is just phenomenal, the way he talks, the information he shares, and I haven't seen you this excited in a while, so I'm excited. I can't wait to hear this interview.
Yeah, I'm freaking pumped, man. The interview just happened a couple of days ago, so it's real recent in my head about what we talked about, but just his ability to explain things and what Atos is doing differently and some of their training ideas, it's going to hit home with a lot of people, and it's going to really help people out, I think. Yeah,
definitely. So stay tuned. Don't miss that part. One little thing I need to mention here, too, is one of our listeners there, Andy Dickey. Congratulations, Andy. He just got his blue belt. So have fun, Andy. I hope you enjoyed getting that blue belt. I know you worked hard for it, and you're on track to start moving up on belts, get to your purple belt in the future. But congratulations, Andy. Well deserved, and we are very happy for you.
Yep, congratulations, Andy. We could tell you've been working hard and enjoyed the blue belt. It's a fun belt.
Yeah, and the cool thing is Andy's always sending us emails and giving us feedback and everything. But the great thing is he started jiu-jitsu late in life and got his he's 58 years old and got his a blue belt, just inspiration to us all. And he's on the mat, and he tells me he's training 5-6 days some weeks there, so they're very, very impressive.
That is cool. Well, good work, Andy. Another thanks goes out to our new friend Eric. He emailed me. He said, "Hey, I'm an audio engineer. I'm going to, if you want to go through some stuff on the soundboard here, I'd be happy to look at it with you and help you out and try to tune some things up." And so I spent quite a bit of time talking to my new buddy Eric, and hopefully it's going good. And he really helped me out a ton. And he also is putting together a little article. Maybe by now, when this is posted, it's already out, about using Evernote to keep a journal in jiu-jitsu, which is Evernote's a free app, which I imagine a lot of people are using anyway, but I hadn't thought about using Evernote for a journal in jiu-jitsu. I do use it all the time for just keeping some notes and stuff on the podcast. I use it when I travel, but Eric is going to come out with this killer article, and he's just giving it to the BJJ Brick podcast or bjjbrick.com, and we'll put it out there. So it should be a lot
awesome. Yeah, that's as we've talked about before. A journal is always a good idea, and also thank you for the tips on our sound issues and helping us have a better podcast.
Yep. Before we get on to any other article action, because we do have an article every week, we got to do our quote, Gary.
Quote of the week. What do we got, sir?
We have our Eduardo Teles from our interview last week. If you missed it, check it out. He's famous for his turtle guard and his creative style. But he does have our quote this week, so we'll go ahead and play that.
I think I like the one from Helio Gracie, the one that he says, I don't know exactly how it is, but it's something like this, like he was telling like someone, people are asking, like swimming is good for jiu-jitsu, what do you think? You think running is good for jiu-jitsu? And then he said, man, good for jiu-jitsu is train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, very simple.
Right, that's the best thing for jiu-jitsu, it's train jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, and people always want to find something else to do to make it better, but if you're able to train and you're out there doing something else, you probably should train.
Exactly, yeah. Of course, you got to take care of your body, of your muscles, because you need them to fight. You should lift, okay, you should, stretch, but the most important thing for jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's simple.
That's a good one.
Right?
The most important thing you can do to get better at jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. People are lifting weights and running and doing yoga and jazzercise. I know Gary was big into that in the 80s.
Jazzercise, yep. I'm really into it. Still into it, not in the 80s.
Yeah, the 80s, I guess, is when you started, but you've peaked a little while ago.
Well, I'm a 3-stripe black belt in jazzercise.
Way to go. But, really, if you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, the best thing you could do is to train jiu-jitsu. Do more of it.
Yep. How many times have you talked to somebody who's coming back after a layoff for a year or so, or wanting to just start jiu-jitsu, and the first thing they always tell you is, I got to get in shape before I can start training. It's like, that's what jiu-jitsu is going to do. It's going to get you in shape. Don't bother going to the gym for a month, going to the YMCA and running on the treadmill. Come on in. Let's get in shape on the mat. Let's get in shape drilling. Let's get in shape rolling. Let's get in shape doing cardio. Let's do it.
Yep.
And it's that simple. If you want to be able to roll longer, if you've got time to train jiu-jitsu and your body's okay, do more jiu-jitsu.
Obviously, if you're going to train 10 hours and jiu-jitsu is available for 10 hours while you're available to train, that's a good time spent. But if the only time you could work out is in the mornings and you only have 2 morning classes available, well, then you go to those 2 classes, and on the days that you're not able to go, you should do something else. You should train something else. But it will help you at jiu-jitsu, as far as cardio strength and that sort of thing. But it's not the answer. It's not going to help you get fine-tune your choke or anything like that. But stay active every day, get sweaty every day. But if you're able to train every day, do that. Right, Gary?
That is true. Yeah, definitely. If you've got the time, train every day. Like Eduardo says, if you got to make sure your body's okay. If your body's suffering or you've taken a beating from jiu-jitsu, you might want to have kind of an active rest. Go out and play some basketball. Go ride your bike, your road bike, your mountain bike. Go to the Y and get on the elliptical. It's going to work your heart, work your legs, get you breathing hard, but it'll rest your joints a little bit. But I'm that guy. Anytime I'm feeling great, if I can roll, that's what I want to do. Rolling's always number one option. Anything after that, then I may ride my bike or go to the Y and hit the weights, but I want to roll every chance I can get.
Yep. And if you can't do those, he's always got that VHS tape of jazzercise he throws in there.
Yep, jazzercise is great, but make sure you have a great set of leg warmers. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it looks better in your selfie, Gary, every time you put one of those up.
Yep.
So the music is telling us to keep things rolling. So
we have an article of the week from A Skirt on the Mat is the website, and we have the article is called Focus on the Fundamentals. No shame in your game. How many times have you heard that? No shame in your game. I like that.
That's cool.
And as always, we'll put a link to this article on our website there. But it's true. We need to focus on the fundamentals, and it's an article here that talks about a teammate wants to revisit some basics, been training for a while, and wants to fill in some holes in her jiu-jitsu. And who doesn't have holes, Byron? We all have them.
Yeah, it's not as fun to work on the areas of your game that are lacking, but it's often very important. You see that come out in a person who has a great top game, and they're hard to sweep, so they don't play much bottom game in the gym. And then they get in the tournament, and they get to the third round, getting to where the competition is pretty intense, and they end up on the bottom, and their whole game is lacking. And it's not at that level. And yeah, it's fundamentals, but yeah, it's stuff you don't like to do, or stuff you've been neglecting. So taking somebody out of their game can be really detrimental if they don't have a well-rounded game. You don't have to have like all the techniques from all the places, but you need to have the fundamentals from all the places.
Yes, yeah, definitely have the fundamentals. And one thing I think about a lot of times is think about the first time you learned, a Kimura, a setup, and then to the Kimura, and then you worked on that for that practice. 3 or 4 months go by, and you go back over that, and each time, it's like it seems like every 3 or 6 months, somehow it'll come back up again, and you'll go over it. But it seems like every time a movement or a technique or a scramble is brought up again, I realize, or I'm taught one little thing that I missed the time before, and I missed that the time before. It's like my hand should be here versus here. My, head should be, posted on his chin, turning his head that way. Little things that I had never caught the first time, or caught the second time, or caught the third time. And every time I go back and really focus on that, I really shore up little mistakes, little things that is hindering my game or hindering that position. And I always like to go back and just learn as much as possible about each position, each scramble, even theories. Just go back. There's so much you miss.
Yeah, I think the easiest example would be somebody who's gotten pretty darn good at jiu-jitsu, and they haven't really done much with the takedown game. That's oftentimes a big hole in people who are good at jiu-jitsu's game. And it's there, like she said, there's no shame in admitting that you're human and you have weaknesses that need to be worked on. So
I see that a lot with leg locks. I always call leg locks a great equalizer. I always say that you can tap way above your pay grade if you get pretty good at leg locks. But a lot of times, if you don't learn to pass the guard and you just use leg locks, or you don't learn the rest of your game, you just go leg locks. I see people getting good quick and tapping people, but a lot of mistakes in their game, outside of the leg lock area. And it's always nice just to, like you said, learn a little bit of everything, and don't be afraid to say, hey, I need to go back and cement this, get better at it.
Yeah, and the great thing is in the interview we talk about what makes a fundamental technique, and if you're lacking one of those techniques or positions, it's probably going to be a good idea, no matter what belt you are, to say, okay, I need to work on this. I don't need to have I don't have the best Kimura in the world. That's not me. I don't have the best. When Gary comes over, I'm always trying to get Kimura tips from Gary, but it's my
actually I hide weakness. Him from Byron. I show him the opposite.
Dang it, Gary, man, that's what's going on. That's why I have a terrible Kimura. But it's okay for me to. But I'm not going to land a sweet Kimura, in a real competitive role. But it's good for me to understand it. It's good for me to understand how the position works, and I could work off of that as well. But I don't know. It's just you need to identify what's weak in your game, and people are going to ask me how to make their Kimura better, and I could say, well, go ask Gary, or I could say, here, you need to do this a little bit better over here. I don't have the best Kimura, but I'm going to show you what I know. So,
and every time you show somebody what you know, you're learning too.
Yep, that is true, Gary.
That's the key.
It helps it get into your brain thoughts better.
And it's going to make our myelin bigger and stronger.
Yes.
I told you I could find a way to bring myelin back in.
Yep. There it is. And if you haven't heard, myelin...
Thank you, Daniel Coyle.
Yeah, myelin is the little neuron transmitters between the neurons in your brain that will actually get thicker like a cable, and it carries information at a faster rate. So as you condition your body and drill things, your myelin gets thicker and it works easier. I mean, just think about, the first time you did any sort of athletic event or tried to write with your incorrect hand. The myelin for that is very weak, and as you build it up a little bit, the parts of your brain actually, lays a thicker cable line, like you're transmitting, internet messages through the cable.
Yeah, you're going from dial-up to wireless.
There you go.
Internet. Yep.
So that's just an easy way to think of it. And anytime we can mention myelin, it's going to help out, I think.
Yep. I will try to mention it again within the next 10 episodes.
All right. I'm looking forward to it already. We always like to talk about myelin. Gary.
Yes.
Before we get the interview going, we got a few more things to talk about. If you want a little bit more of the BJJ Brick podcast, swing on by the website, bjjbrick.com, or our Facebook page, and you can sign up for our newsletter that comes out every week, and it sends you all the show notes and a link to the show. Just a good way for us to keep in contact with you and make sure you don't miss an episode. If you want to support the BJJ Brick podcast, we have an audiobook you could get. It's called Your First Year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I try to walk you through all the pitfalls and things you're going to go through your first year of training, and I try to help you out the best I can. There are chapters on finding the right gym for you, your first month in BJJ, and also a big chapter is techniques and positions you should focus on during your first year. So I just try to help guide you through that. You obviously have your coaches there to help you out, but a lot of stuff that I think helps out. I actually, a buddy of mine wanted to try jiu-jitsu, and he listened to the podcast, and he bought the audiobook. I felt kind of weird having a friend of mine buy it, but he wanted to support me on the show here. And he comes into his first class, and he's got like all the stuff. He's doing everything perfect. He's being friendly with everybody. And when he went to the restroom, he put his sandals on and went in. I'm like, you brought sandals? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how did he know? Oh yeah, he bought the audio.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, I kind of helped him out and steered him in the right direction. So
that is a good thing. I never thought about that. A lot of people do not know about sandals in the restroom. Their first time or first couple months, and like people have been training a while. You always put sandals in your bag. You always have sandals. But yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah,
and it's just like he just knew it, and I didn't have to, hey, don't forget to bring sandals or whatever. He just did it, and it was nice. So the book already paid off in keeping one person's feet clean.
Definitely.
So that's a good way you can support the podcast. It's $11.99. Check it out in the show notes or on the website, and it'd be a way you could help us out and keep the audio flowing here at the BJJ Brick podcast. Gary, I think we are ready to roll the interview.
Let's go.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
His Facebook page has twice as many likes as the BJJ Brick Facebook page, because everyone who likes the BJJ Brick Facebook page also likes his page. But then their moms go and like his page too. He can toe hold a duck. The first time he took his opponent's back, he never returned it. It now sits on his mantle in a jar of formaldehyde.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Go for the submission, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Tim Sledd to the BJJ Brick podcast. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share some BJJ time with you guys.
Well, thanks for being on here. We are excited to learn from you and learn a little bit about you and what's going on. Could you kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself to get us started?
Yeah, sure. So I am a first-degree black belt, and I got my black belt from Andre Galval and got my first degree from him. I'm still with him. So that's where I'm at currently. My BJJ history begins, much like anybody else in my generation, the interest started probably in 1994, 95 when I watched Royce Gracie in the first UFCs. I'm one of the people that was watching those on video cassettes. I rooted against him for several years because I'm a wrestler. I was a wrestler in high school, and I couldn't believe that this guy was whipping everybody without doing too much damage to them. So I rooted against him for quite a while, and then I started realizing that what he was doing was scientific wrestling in its own right. So I started training submission grappling at Walt Hartwich's school in Lafayette, Indiana in 1996, and learned some submissions there, and then I went to college. And in 1998, I was formally introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu through an academic class at Indiana University. They offered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You could take it as like a PE credit sort of class. Greg Lucas was a blue belt under Royce Gracie, and so I started taking his class and training with him. He had an academy about 30 minutes south of the university that I would drive to and train. In 2000, I flew to California to train at the Gracie Academy. I got my blue belt there. That's where I met Master Kaiki, who became he was my first Brazilian one-on-one coach or professor. And he was sort of the guide of my jiu-jitsu career up to my brown belt. Greg Lucas was my local coach, and then Kaiki was my Brazilian instructor.
Okay.
And so I was with Master Kaiki until I was a brown belt. And there's another podcast that I was interviewed on when I chose to leave my team with Kaiki, and then I was Ronin. I was without an instructor for a while, and then I met Professor Andre Galvão, and he and I became friends and allied, and I've been with him since 2010, and just enjoying the progress and the process. I'm very grateful for all the people that have been involved in my progress and process of jiu-jitsu, from my early coaches and my early professors to the people that I come into contact with today and train with now. They're all responsible for a component of my belt. I say to my students all the time that first I encourage them to wash their belts, because knowledge doesn't seep out of the washing machine. But I also tell people that they should have confidence anytime they tie their belt, because everybody they've shared the mats with has put some energy into that belt. The belt belongs not just to you; it belongs to everybody who's helped you get to that level. Whether it's a piece of athletic tape stripe on your white belt, or when you get your coveted black belt tied around your waist, there's a lot of people that go into making that happen, and you can't forget about them, and you need to respect them. And so I have a lot of respect for my lineage and my history and all the people that helped me.
Wow, I love what you're saying there about all the people's hands who has helped get you to the level that you're at, whether you're at a blue belt or black belt or white belt with a stripe. You're not getting. If you were to train by yourself in a room, you wouldn't ever get a single stripe on a white belt. I mean, it wouldn't happen. So it's not just like a team, but it's just everybody's contributing to help you as they are also helping themselves get better. And
yes, I mean, I think sometimes it's not even. It's actually people who aren't even on your team. Like look at the storied rivalry of Professor Rafa Mendez and Professor Cobrinha. I mean, those are two guys that don't share camaraderie in the sense of being on a BJJ team or even a BJJ family, but because of each other, they get better, because they both want to beat each other so badly, and they know they're going to compete at the highest level in the most significant matches. So, in the back of their head all the time is, how do I make my techniques better? How do I build my strategy better? And without that person being there, you wouldn't be engaging those thoughts. So you have to, at least I believe you should hold respect for that.
Yeah, it's part of your process. And I do like how you threw in there real quick about washing your belt is okay.
Yeah, it's early on, I forget who told me this, but they said, hey, it's part of the martial arts tradition that you don't wash your belt. And at some point, I know when I was a purple belt, I was training with a really tough guy. And he had his normal natural body odor, and then he had a uniform that he didn't put in the dryer. He let air dry, so it had a must to it. And I would go home and I would clean my gi, but I would leave my belt out of that process, and my belt would just stink. And so I started washing my belt just because I hate having any extra odor. I'm a person who, if I eat curry or onions or garlic, it comes out in my sweat anyway. So, carrying around a little extra funk was bad. And then, I think there's been I've heard when listening to other podcasts, there's been some pretty good research that says, the belt contains a lot of germs and has the same propensity for holding the fungus that makes ringworm and the bacteria that cause staph. And, and if you're grinding around on the ground and somebody's been in the restroom with bare feet, the bare feet made it to the mat, your belt's just as easy to pick that up as the lapel of your kimono. So it's a cleanliness thing. You don't have to wash it after every class if you don't want to, but it needs to be cleaned.
Yeah, clearly it represents 3 to 5% of the cloth you have on your body at the time. And
right.
It's on the mat, like you're saying. If someone's feet are on the in the bathroom and on the mat, you're wiping that up unless you just play Top Game all the time. So yeah, I'm an advocate of washing the belt occasionally, and I don't think I forgot any techniques that I've learned and got good at after washing my belt.
Exactly.
So I like hearing that, and that's always encouraging. I think it's kind of an older thing that's hopefully just kind of slowly going away, and it'll be help with cleanliness in the long run.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that really has to that really helps in that is when people at our level, when students see us, and that we don't convey the folklore that exists around belt colors. There's folklore that says that the way belt colors came to be is that a person would wear a white belt, and the white belt would get really dirty and become brown. They eventually would become black, and then the artist would wear that black belt until the point where it turned white again. And that's folklore. There used to be two belts. There was white and black belts in traditional martial arts. There weren't a lot of color grading. Color grading to belts is relatively new to the martial arts history. I think it was Jigoro Kano in judo that brought different levels of color into the belt system. I could be wrong on that, but it doesn't have anything to do with getting dirty. It has to do with sort of a representation of different levels of mastery of skill. It's the same sort of thing with people there's a lot of people that start jiu-jitsu and they long for that cauliflower ear. It becomes sort of a point of pride. Well, I've got cauliflower ear, and it's more of a pain in the butt than it is anything. I think it has a lot to do with sort of the makeup of the cartilage in your body. Some people just can't get it. They have really soft cartilage. It's not going to break and tear. Some people have really crusty cartilage, and it's going to break and snap and tear if you look at it wrong, and those people will have balloons of cauliflower. Those things are just distractions from what we're really engaging in, which is trying to absorb a defined skill set of a martial art or sport, if you view it in that sense. And appearances are very deceiving. One of the best things about jiu-jitsu to me is that you can get somebody that walks into your school that's 6'4", 250, muscle bound, and you can place that person with a 5'4", 135 computer geek who doesn't lift any weights or do any cross training of any sort, but just does jiu-jitsu, and the technique prevails. Now, all things being equal, somebody with size and strength will be good, but based on appearance alone, you can't predict who's going to be able to whip who if you don't know what their backgrounds are. And so it's one of the fun things about going to tournaments is watching sort of the white belts and the blue belts with their hoodies on and their Beats headphones, jumping around and like doing like a 3,000 calorie workout just before they get on the mat. Or they have the tricked out gi with tons of patches, almost like they're a NASCAR driver, and then you go out and you watch them perform, and you don't know whether that has a psychological impact on their opponent or not, but it's probably minimal, because when you get into the fracas of rolling, of competing, most of the time your mind goes into a zone, your breathing changes, your grip strength goes away, and you're not so much concerned about what the person's wearing anymore. You're concerned about survival and hitting the techniques. So I try to make sure that I keep my students on the square, that it doesn't matter what brand of gi you're wearing. It doesn't matter what patch you have, or whether you wear a hoodie and jump around and listen to the most motivating music possible before you get on the mat. What matters is how you perform once you get out there, which is largely determined by what how prepared you are, how confident you are that you're going to enjoy the experience, and those things are far harder to manage than what your appearance looks like. That's why most people choose to kind of go toward appearance. That's
interesting, and I know that newer students often fall victim to kind of that intimidation of looking around and trying to figure out who their opponents are going to be, and
sure,
and that gets in there. But really, you get them in positions you're familiar with and that you're good at, and it can be the same as anybody else. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. Tell me, you do a lot there for Atos, and it sounds like you have a busy day. You do jiu-jitsu stuff full time, is that correct?
Yeah. So that's relatively new to me. I was a lawyer and ran jiu-jitsu schools in Indiana. I was a prosecutor for the last 6 years of my stint as an attorney, and that was a very busy, very stressful, very time-consuming gig. And in 2014, summer of 2014, Professor Andre invited me to be the director of his affiliate relations for the Atos Jiu-Jitsu Association, which meant a move from Indiana to California, and we agreed that I could open a gym here as well. So I do my jobs now are twofold. I work as the director of affiliate relations for the Atos Jiu-Jitsu Association, which means I do everything from review applications of people who apply to be affiliates. I work through that process with people. I work through the process of contracting with folks that want to be Atos affiliates. I do seminar setups. I do curriculum training. We do all kinds of fun stuff in our association with retreats and social media. I work with two other staff members, Yolanda and Carlos, who are in charge of marketing and retail and sales and shipping and all of that stuff. And I handle, I do problem solving within the association. If an affiliate's having a problem, I try to help them solve it. So I do that. And then I run a small gym in Oceanside, California, which is northern San Diego County. I just opened it in February. I'm building it from the ground up. And I'm loving that. I love being able to put all the attention that I can into both of these things, which are 100% BJJ related. So that's what I do. Some people say, "Wow, you left being an attorney to move to California. You're living the jiu-jitsu dream, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle." I made a life value decision with my family that the way things were going, we were having a certain degree of satisfaction in life, definitely a monetary our life was fine monetarily, but quality of life, dealing with the things that I was dealing with as a prosecutor, the time I was away from home, the desire that I had to be doing jiu-jitsu, training jiu-jitsu, teaching jiu-jitsu, but having to fit that in and spin that around a formalized professional career made it very difficult. And we got to a point where we said, shoot, we're young enough, let's give this a go, give it a shot. And all the stars aligned the way they did, and I'm very happy right now. Am I stress free and concern free? Of course not. I didn't think it would be that way, but I view my decisions in life the same way I view my strategies in jiu-jitsu, that you need to have a good strategy. Things have to happen at the right time, and you need to execute things with technique and technical precision. And it's just like attacking submissions in jiu-jitsu. If you have a poor strategy, you'll never get to that goal, that target. If you attack that target at the wrong time, you're not going to have success. And if your technique is weak and sloppy, your success rate will go down on the more experienced your opponent or your training partner is. That works for life too. I tell people who are looking for promotions at work, I say, you need to have a strategy. What are you going to communicate to your employer that you're worth, and what are you going to use as evidence for that? So you have to have a good strategy, build that up. You got to go in ready to communicate. You don't want to go in if the timing's wrong. If the company's at a position where they're looking to make cuts, you don't want to go in and ask for a raise. That's bad timing. And then the execution, the technique that you use is very important. I mean, how do you say it? How do you do it? Do you do it in a meeting? Do you do it in an email? You got to figure out what's the appropriate sort of method of asking for that. That's applying a sort of jiu-jitsu truisms to normal life, and that's one of the things about jiu-jitsu is when you start to think about it a lot, you'll see how it can help you in your everyday life.
Yeah, there's a lot of comparisons, it seems like, on and off the mat. You mentioned that you opened your own gym. What is the name of your gym?
So my gym's name is Small Axe Jiu-Jitsu, Axe, A-X-E, and that's Atos Oceanside. So I run an Atos affiliate called Atos Oceanside, but my gym's name is Small Axe Jiu-Jitsu, and I have two sub-affiliates, one in Indiana and one in Rapid City, South Dakota. And so those are Small Axe sub-affiliates that are under me, but my gym is in Oceanside. How'd
you get the name Small Axe?
It's a Bob Marley song. My wife and I were driving from Indiana. Actually, we were driving back from northern Minnesota up in the Boundary Waters. We had spent a week camping, and we were driving back in the middle of the night. And when I was younger, I could do that. I could drive 16 hours through the middle of the night and not have problems. As I age, that's more difficult. But anyway, I was listening to a crusty Bob Marley compilation that my wife had gotten me for my birthday, probably a bootleg, and it had the song Small Axe on it. And I was just listening to the words of the song, and I was like, man, that fits kind of the way I think about jiu-jitsu. I'm a big fundamentals and basic technique guy. I really believe in roots in jiu-jitsu. I try to hold dear the belief that the techniques I teach should be able to be used by a little person against a big person, a weak person against a strong person, an old person against a young person. And how I summarize this whole argument quickly is that if you have a task, and the task is to clear trees out of a forest, and you're given two tools. One is a chainsaw with one tank of gas, and one is an axe and a sharpening stone. The chainsaw is a great tool to select until you run out of gas, and then you're not going to cut a single tree down with it. But the axe is more like fundamentals. If you keep your axe sharp, your fundamentals sharp, you can tear through a whole forest. So there'll be flavor of the day techniques that pop up that are chainsaw-esque. About a year or 2 years ago, it was the berimbolo. Everybody wanted to know the berimbolo, and it was the fastest way to the back, and the back's a great place to be. But it's an attribute-dependent technique. You have to be willing to go up on your neck. You have to have a certain amount of speed. There's somewhat of a reliance upon cloth, so for gripping. And so I sat back and I watched this, and I said to myself, I don't think this is going to become an axe move. I think this is going to be a chainsaw move. It'll always be great. People who keep that saw filled with gas will get a lot of mileage out of it. But as time has progressed, the counters to it, the dangers that it puts you into, the limited number of people who are able to execute it very well, make it what I think is a chainsaw move versus an axe move. Like an arm drag to me is more of an axe move, because an arm drag is relatively simple to pull off. It's not attribute dependent. A little person can arm drag a big person because of applying mass against one appendage. And the end result is often a back take as well. An arm drag is relatively easy to see coming, and isn't very confusing. You know when somebody's on the outside edge of your arm that they're heading toward your back, whereas a berimbolo can be very confusing, and you don't know where the person's going. And so there's merits to both, and probably a fair amount of disagreement. People would have disagreement with my assessment of that technique. I'm not saying it's a bad technique. I'm just explaining where small axe comes from. My core curriculum are very fundamental techniques, and those techniques have been measured against my experience with their success rate against all levels of practitioners, and I always try to keep it so that it doesn't matter who walks into my gym on any given day. The core technique that they're learning, they're going to be able to learn. It's not there's no requirement that they needed to be at the class the whole week before in order to be able to pick up that core technique. It should be simple enough, effective enough that they can pick that technique up in one class and understand it and start to be able to employ it.
You mentioned a couple of times that the chainsaw style techniques are attribute dependent. I'm thinking like flexibility, strength, speed, things that you possess, but maybe not have their entire jiu-jitsu career. If we're doing this when we're in our 70s, you're not going to have your speed. You probably won't have the same flexibility, and the strength won't be quite it was, when you're in your 20s or 30s. Is that kind of what you mean by attribute dependent?
It's exactly what I mean about attribute dependent. It was I think where I came up with where that sort of terminology came into my lexicon was reading an interview by Eddie Bravo back when the rubber guard was the buzz.
Yeah.
And people were really poo-pooing the rubber guard, and he said, look, only 5% of the guys in my gym can do the rubber guard systems well. And he said it's because of this or that or the other reason that they can't. And I said, so those attributes are important, knee flexibility, hip flexibility. And you can develop those attributes, but if the technique is dependent upon those, that's where it doesn't make like a small axe sense. It may make perfect sense for jiu-jitsu, and I'm not, like I said, the berimbolo is a fantastic technique and works very well and will cut through trees if very efficiently. It's not something to throw away. It's just something for me and for my gym and for my philosophy is taught more sparingly than, say, like an arm drag or same thing with the rubber guard system. I may use and I may show some rubber guard techniques, but I'm probably going to show methods of getting to omoplata or triangle from a more conventional route that somebody who doesn't have great knee or hip flexibility, they can get there, because you can definitely get to these positions without having to, be super flexible. And like you said, my goal is to do jiu-jitsu literally till the day I die. And, I know that between now and then there's going to be some deterioration of my body.
Yeah. That's a guarantee, not necessarily just from jiu-jitsu, but just from getting older. And I think, staying fit and active on the mat is a good way to help us keep our younger bodies longer. But they're gonna start breaking down, and they're not gonna heal as fast. And I have experienced that myself. You mentioned the rubber guard system. You teach a lot about building systems. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. Sort of repeat. I've never invented anything. Nothing I am going to say or teach in jiu-jitsu is original. I've learned it from other people. I study. I'm a nerd, so I really like to absorb knowledge and listen to other people. But the big sort of comparisons that have made sense to me, comparing jiu-jitsu to other things in the world that we've experienced, is that jiu-jitsu is like a language. Each technique is a word, and then you learn how to put those words together to make sentences, those sentences together to make paragraphs, those paragraphs together to make chapters, the chapters to make books, and the books together to make volumes and series. So that's always made a lot of sense to me, is that I shouldn't be teaching people random stray words and hoping that they're then going to be able to make complex arguments. Instead, you need to be teaching people techniques in a way that allows them to communicate those techniques in different scenarios. From that, I developed systems. So, one of the big things I notice is that whenever I travel, white belts and blue belts are always sort of an interesting group of people to see, but purple belts, almost always in my experience, are very dangerous. I always give full respect to somebody wearing a purple belt because they're dangerous. And why is that? Usually by that point, they're speaking the language. They know how to put sentences together. So they've got some strategy. They've got some, whether they've been taught a system or not, they've probably developed their own sort of linking of techniques together in more than a 1-2 move combo. And that makes them dangerous, because anytime somebody is making multiple steps toward finishing you versus one step, you have to be engaged in defending on multiple steps. So systems and system building, to me, is a form of thinking about jiu-jitsu in a way that says, this is my goal. These are the techniques that I like to use in this position or in this transition, and how do I link them together in such a way that they will be most effective. And so I teach systems to my youth classes, and I teach systems to my white belt students up to my black belt students. One of the things that I really believe is I don't necessarily believe in muscle memory, but I do believe in sort of decreased reaction time. The more you engage in a certain behavior and repeat that certain behavior, then the more likely you are to be able to pull that behavior off using less of your conscious mind. You can be more subconscious in your movements, and so teaching people to work through a system of techniques and then allowing them to have ample time to work that system of techniques, it helps them when they arrive there in competition to be able to, or in sparring or enrolling in class or whatever, it'll allow them to be able to execute that system without having to use a lot of thought. When somebody's turtle on bottom and you're attacking turtle, if you say, okay, I want to take the back. And let's say you want to choke the person with a rear naked choke.
Okay.
If you teach rear naked choke only on your back attack nights, then and you don't address rear naked choke during your attacking turtle nights, you create a distance in the path, and it's a logical path from attacking turtle to take the back to rear naked choke. And that's a 3-move system. You're attacking turtle, which means you have to hold a position. You take the back, and then you execute the rear naked choke. It's 3-move, very simple system. But if you only are doing rear naked choke on nights where you have the back, you create an artificial distance there that shouldn't be there. And so I want my students, whenever they see somebody go turtle, I want my students to be thinking, oh, I'm very close to rear naked choke. Even though they don't have their hooks in, even though they don't have their seatbelt grip yet, I want them to be seeing the end destination. And then I link all of my different phases together throughout my curriculum so that all of the systems feed into one another. So the double underpass system. So yeah. I love double underpass. And so we'll work double underpass to crossbody, double underpass to mount for a phase. And at the end of the phase, I say, well, the double underpass fails right here if the person uses heavy legs. You're not going to be able to get to the cross side as easily. But you can stack the person and roll them to turtle. And so then now we're working on attacking the turtle. And when we attack the turtle, we have a lot of different options of things that we can do. We can attack for submissions from the turtle or whatnot, but we can also take the back and get to the rear naked choke. So I link everything together, and then I go back and I say, okay, so now when you're passing somebody's guard, passing their open guard, and you use the double under scoop, how close are you to thinking about rear naked choke? Some people are 1,000 miles away from thinking about rear naked choke, but you're really 4 body movements away from rear naked choke. So I teach them this system. So a lot of times when my students are passing the guard, they're thinking about how they're beating you from your back, or they're thinking about how they're going to be triangling you. They're passing your guard and they're thinking about how they're going to triangle you. Yes, because there's some very simple, short systems that can get them there. And what I found is my white to blue belt progression happens very quickly because it's like being dropped into another country, a foreign language. They say the best way to learn it is immersion. Yeah. And, it's not going to, sort of the elementary school and sitting in a kindergarten class and learning, colors and learning one word at a time. That's a great way to learn, to refine your language. But to learn language, to be able to communicate, immersion's the best way. And I don't see any reason that jiu-jitsu should be different. It's not immersion from the sense that we're going to drop you into the mixer of a tough sparring class, but it's saying, let's start talking jiu-jitsu right now. Let's start speaking jiu-jitsu right now and linking sentences together so that you understand that you're in a restaurant and you need to find out where is the restroom. That's a common question that you ask. That's a very logical sort of question you ask. Or where is the pop machine? Or where's the soda fountain? Or can I have a fork? Or these are things that you would ask in a restaurant. Whereas if you're at a playground, you're not going to ask, may I have a fork? Where is the pop machine? That doesn't make any sense. So when we're in the restaurant, we need to know how to speak restaurant terms. And or maybe we're in a certain state. I'm very hungry. Where can I eat? And so you go from a state of being hungry to now you're in a restaurant, you need to know where the fork is. Having that language is not far from each other. But if I said, hey, we're standing in the park, how is fork ever going to come up in a conversation? It would seem very far, yeah. Right? But it's really not far. It's just it relies upon a state of mind and then a need. And so in jiu-jitsu, it's the same thing. There's a limited number of phases that you're in jiu-jitsu. You're in maybe you're in the guard, or you're passing the guard, you're in the mount, or you're under the mount, you're on the back, or you're taking the back, or you're knee on stomach, or under knee on stomach, et cetera, half guard, whatever. But there's a limited number of phases that you're in, but there's just a ton of language in each phase.
Yeah.
You can get lost for looking at a specific tree in that forest. What you got to do is you got to learn, what is the goal? Where are we going? And so that's what I do, is I build these systems for my students, and I encourage them to find their own systems as well, so that when they're passing the guard with the double underpass, that in their head they know they're very close to rear naked choke.
It sounds like the difference between having a good system and just having your pile of techniques from each position. If you're taking my back and you have just your techniques with you, you get my back and you get your hooks and you get your seatbelt grip. Now, if you have your system, you're more likely to have my back and already be under my neck. As your last hook is going into place, you already got my chin, and it seems like it's a lot smoother of a flow to have a system set up.
Well, and I think that's exactly what I'm trying to build, I don't think it's something that people have to stumble upon themselves. I felt like a lot of my systems I stumbled upon myself, in my reflection and in my sort of study of jiu-jitsu. I was not brought up in a systems school. From white to brown belt, any systems I got, I was developing myself off of the wonderful techniques that I was being taught. But that's one of the things that Professor Andre, he does, is he's huge on systems, even though I don't know how much he talks about building systems, but he's very organized in his dissemination of his flavor and brand of jiu-jitsu, as are the Mendez brothers. They're both of those groups are very systems oriented, and that's why they're so effective, and can build just relentless champions at the lower levels. Even at the kids, you look at the AOJ kids, and the AOJ kids they're the best kids team in the world, and that's because their kids are learning systems. They're not learning little individual techniques and then being put to spar. They're being taught effective strategies and submissions, and then being taught how to employ those. And so the game's not, it's not a vegetable soup situation for them. It's a situation where they're looking at a clear roadmap.
Yeah, I always look at teams when I get somebody like you to talk about it. I want to know what the team does differently. Everybody says we train hard. Well, everybody trains hard. That's a given. But is building systems one of the key things that makes Atos so successful?
Yes, I think it's definitely systems. It's also their.
That was our first half of the Tim Sledd interview. I cut it short. He's saying that it's not just about the systems building; it's also about. And then, sorry guys, I feel like I'm producing one of those TV shows that is a weekly deal, and every week, you're getting ready to what's going to happen in the commercial and end the show. It's like, dang it!
I can't believe you did that to me. It reminds me of when I was watching The Walking Dead every Sunday night. I wanted it just to keep on going, and you did this to me. Byron,
it's like,
how could you do that?
The zombies are so close, they gotta get them, and then do they get them? And in The Walking Dead, they do knock off some of their main characters occasionally, so you gotta think that they might.
So are you trying to tell me you're going to knock me off and before next week?
So so guys, also stay tuned to see if Gary comes back.
Oh, look at you. You turned it again. No, but yeah, I can't wait to next week to hear the rest of it. Just great knowledge, very informative. And I did, the last question I asked him, or the first question I asked him of the next episode, what is Atos doing differently? Everybody trains hard. Everybody, we train
25 hours in a day. You know, it's insane how much training we do. But what do you guys do that is different than training hard? And he talks more about system building and it explains that in more detail. But it's also about some of the things that he shares them. I mean, there's no secrets here. He opens up and he says we're doing these things, and they're really helping us with our success. And I just want to say them, but I feel like I've set it up for this big of a thing.
Yeah, we gotta stay tuned. We gotta listen next week.
So I'm super excited to have the second half of this interview come out.
So definitely tune in next week. You can't miss second part of Tim Sledd's interview. You definitely got to see it.
Yeah, and this would be a good one that I think a lot of coaches would enjoy this interview. I think a lot of coaches do. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from various coaches that have either been on the show or who just send an email. But this is a great one. If you're just a student, say, "Hey, coach, check this out." I think what Tim's saying here is going to. He's got some really great ideas, and obviously, he's with Atos. I mean, I think they're doing stuff right over there. What more can you say? They know what's going on, and you can't find a more analytical guy than Tim Sledd. He really likes to break things down and get into the details of what's happening. So, just awesome for next week's interview, man. I'm super excited. Gary, I'm excited.
I was going to say I've never heard you that excited when we were talking about the interview. So and you were really, really excited about the second part, so I can't wait to listen to it. He actually hasn't let me listen to it either. So
keeping it locked up tight.
Yep. But Byron, how do you get a BJJ Brick patch?
Oh, for my gi? Or for my
for your gi.
Okay. Or I was thinking maybe
for your
tattoo.
gi, or I guess you could put it on your jeans or your leg warmers.
Yeah, these are all options that you could use the patch for. The easiest way is go ahead and move to the United States because it makes it cheaper to send it to you. So if you live in the United States, we send them out if you write us a review on iTunes or on Stitcher Radio. We won't know that review comes in until you tell us. So write the review. Hopefully it's a 5-star review, and we kind of like them if they're funny. Use a little personality, make a few jokes.
Make fun of Byron while you're doing it.
Make fun of me. I got kind of a big nose here, as seen on the logo. It's all fun and games. But, write us a review, and then send us an email. And this email is good for anything you want to email us, bjjbrick@gmail.com, and let us know you wrote the review, and we'll get back with you and get your address and mail you a gi patch. I'm not setting up some system to collect money here, so I just figured if you do that for us, we'll be happy to send you one and let you represent the BJJ Brick podcast. So it's going good.
Or go ahead, Byron. I cut you off.
Nothing. It's going good. It's been a way we've been able to give out free gi patches. We haven't had to send out like 40 in a day. I'm not overwhelmed by it, but 1 or 2 a week is good, and
it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So definitely, if you have time, give us a review, funny review if possible. Send us an email. We'll get you out a patch. If you happen to be vacationing in the Midwest, coming through Wichita, Kansas for work, anything of that sort, get a hold of us. We'd love to train with you. We love training with the listeners. We definitely will learn a lot from each other.
Yeah, and so, Gary, we're in Wichita, Kansas, and Tim Sledd has family in Wichita. So,
no, awesome.
So, it keeps getting better. But hopefully we'll get to roll with him someday when he comes through town or when we go up there. So if we're in Wichita, Kansas, bjjbrick@gmail.com, give us a holler or hit us up on Facebook, and we'll be happy to get some mat time in with our listeners. We love that. Like we mentioned before, sign up for the email list on the website or the Facebook page. It's just a good way to send you one email a week is what we've been doing for the whole time we've had it. Saying what's on the week's show. So that's been a lot of help getting the word out there to the people who don't want to miss a show.
Yep, you'll never miss a show. And also, if you want to support the show, for only $11.99, you get the audio book that'll guide you through your first year of jiu-jitsu. And we've kind of talked about, the hint about the sandals. So it'll give you great hints. It'll tell you the positions you need to work on. And definitely a great audio book to help you through.
Gary, we actually had somebody with over a year of jiu-jitsu get the audiobook just to help out on the podcast there and show us some appreciation. So
that is
was
awesome.
Very nice. I'm sure. I hope they listened to it and I hope they enjoyed it and picked up.
Yeah, we always say your first year. You just like what we were talking about today, the fundamentals article there. You think about stuff you missed during your first year, and it's really not just your first year, but it makes your first year easier. But think how much, if you've been training 4 or 5 years, that stuff you learn in your first year, you learn so much, you forget a lot of it. It's just like, hey, let's go back. Let's cement our fundamentals. And so you don't have to be training 12 months or under to enjoy the audiobook.
But if you don't want to get it, that's fine. We're okay with that. You just listen for, we're glad you're listening. We're honored by that.
That's the most important thing.
A lot of people are waiting for Gary's new book, Knife Fighting in the Ocean. Gary, give us one knife fighting tip in the ocean.
Knife fighting in the ocean, run from sharks. You're not going to win.
Not swim, but run from the sharks, my friends. Like, there's no better way to get out of that.
Yeah, because you're not going to outswim them. Or just play dead.
So that'll be coming soon, Gary's audiobook, Knife Fighting in the Ocean. So.
Check it out. It's free of charge.
He's got a ton of it. I don't think there's anybody more experienced than Gary in this subject. So.
Definitely knife fighting underwater in the ocean.
Yeah. So that's just one of the things we got coming your way. We hope.
Hope.
Yep.
It's a key word.
So he mentioned Small Axe Jiu-Jitsu is the name of his gym. I hope you have noticed or figured it out. I started playing that song while he was talking about Small Axe. So we're talking during the song, but why don't I play it on the exit of the show here, Gary? What do you think about that?
I think you should. Bob Marley, it's a great song. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, and I did a little research. You're not really supposed to play copyrighted music, but if you give it like a little, opinion about the song, it's good to go. You're technically reviewing the music, so I think it's a great song. That's why I said
it was a great song. Yeah, even though it is a great song.
I love Bob Marley. He's got a lot of good songs, and this, as you listen to the words of the song, think about jiu-jitsu, and think about what he was thinking as they drove on their long drive, and how he related this to jiu-jitsu, and maybe Bob Marley will help you out on the mat there. So should be good. We'll roll that after we have a normal exit, I guess. So.
Normal exit.
I don't know what to call it. But it's been a fun episode. I know you're going to listen next week, my friends. It's how could you not tune in with a cliffhanger
after that
like
suspense? So tune in next week, and thank you so much for listening.
And stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
But the goodness of Jaja, I endure it forever. So if you want the big tree, we are a small axe, ready to cut you down, to cut you down. Of my master, keep on telling me, no weak out shall prosper. And whosoever diggeth the pit shall fall in it, fall in it. And whosoever diggeth the pit shall fall in it. If you want a big tree, let me tell you that we are the small axe, sharp and ready to cut you down, to cut you down. time.